What psychosocial means is our mental well-being.
Uh-huh.
And the targets are advertisements that pop up on your social media and say, are you interested in a job? And in general, I think travel is safe to a lot of countries. And that's what makes people more vulnerable because they assume that there are no problems.
Halo semuanya, selamat datang di Tenggara Talk by Indonesia. But in this episode, I'm going to talk in English. So again, I'm going to redo it. Hello for the viewers that's talking in English. Welcome to Tenggara Talk by Indonesia. In this special episode, we have a special guest. We have a guest from International Organization of Migration. Please welcome Pak Jeff. Hello, Pak Jeff.
Hi, Al. Thanks for having me.
Thank you too for making the time to come here. Oh my God, I'm kind of nervous. I'm still kind of nervous. Woo! So, Pak Jeff, how long have you been in Indonesia?
I've been coming and going for 6-7 months, but I finally moved and just a couple months ago. And my belongings 2 weeks ago.
Your belongings?
I just got my shipment.
All right. I'm curious. You said that you're fine with being called Pak Jeff instead of Mr. Jeff. Why is it?
That's what everyone calls me at work. I got used to it.
You got used to it.
Yeah, Pa and Boo and Bapa.
Bapa. Don't call me
there.
Boo, okay? Don't call me Boo.
Won't do it.
No.
You're Al.
Yeah, I'm Al. I'm not that old yet. I don't want to be that old yet. Okay. And Pak Jeff, I want to ask, how long have you been working for International Organizations of Migration?
How long have I been working for IOM?
Yes,
oh, wow.
IOM.
I started in 1996.
96? I was born in 96.
So you'll remember.
No, I don't, but I was born there.
Yeah, a long time ago.
A long time ago.
And it's taken me around the world. I've literally worked in over 100 countries. A lot of them short, some of them middle, some longer.
Oh.
And every part of the world, it's been amazing.
Wow. I can't wait to explore more about the topic today because I'm pretty sure young people in Indonesia must know a lot more about the things that you've been working on, the things that we have to be more concerned about, especially about our safety. Oh my God. In the face of changing dynamics in global migration, I want to ask, I'm very curious, how does IOM Indonesia adapt and update its approach to address emerging migration challenges? Like right now, what are we supposed to do as young people in Indonesia, and what have we been doing that's actually we need to improve more, stuff like that. I'm very curious about that.
Well, migration in Indonesia is something which is really interesting. We've been around here since 1979.
1979?
79.
Ooh.
IOM started after World War II. When there was so much displacement after the World War II. And we became really big later on in Asia with Vietnamese boat people.
Boat people.
And so we came to Indonesia in 1979 when there were camps in Indonesia and there was a whole bunch of Vietnamese and they needed to be resettled to different countries.
Yeah.
And we've continued since then. But Indonesia it's a G20 country. The economy is just growing amazingly. The population is massive. It's 270 million people. It's unfathomable how big it is. And there's a lot of people that go and work outside. Maybe it's a small percentage of the population, but the government talks about 9 million people, Indonesians who are traveling abroad.
So many. And then how can we adapt with all these current challenges right now? I mean, we've been facing the challenges introduced by the boat people in 1975, right? And 1979. 1975 is the band. It's the band, not 1979. Okay, sorry. Yeah, but definitely the challenges back then is different from now, right? So how do we adapt?
I mean, I think Indonesia has changed so much since then. I came as a backpacker 30 years ago to Indonesia.
Really?
And and had a wonderful time, but it's just a fundamental change. And I've been backwards and forwards many times over the years. The IOM looks at migration in 3 different categories. We look at governance, so how we can put in structures in place and support the government to positively manage migration. We look at mobility. And we look at resilience. And resilience means that people are prepared to help themselves when they need to. And all that coming together helps manage migration in a better way. And Indonesia is right there. They have BP2MI. This is an institution in Indonesia which looks at government-to-government agreements to protect workers going abroad. And over 2 million Indonesians are fully under this umbrella of protection. And we look at resilience in communities. We're looking at how we have government structures which have the capacity to address problems when they happen. We'll talk about counter-trafficking and online scams. And there's a great leadership role of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, who's going around to all the different countries where Indonesians have problems. They're on the front line trying to help people out.
Yes, I see now. Online scams. That's a very interesting topic that we're gonna get back to that later. I'm gonna dive a little bit further on online scams. But for now, I want to ask, what is the role of IOM Indonesia in border and immigration management in the country, and how does it interact with government agencies in Indonesia? I mean, you've already mentioned before that you help manage and support, but can I actually get the description that's more on the technical? Like, how do you actually manage and support? Like, do you actually make like workshops for people? Like, is it actually like a training, or is it like giving education in terms of classes for the people? Like, the technicalities, like, can you describe it for me, please?
It's all of those things. And so you've introduced it
Really?
perfectly. Yeah. I mean, when we talk about governance, so we just referred to this concept of governance. Indonesia's got capacity. And so it's not us at the forefront of any topic. It's the government and the local institutions who are at the forefront of addressing migration issues. And so we're working to support them. And so we can take international best practice. We can say this worked in this country, let's work on it here. And it could be training, it could be looking at procedures, but we also work on direct assistance. And so one of the things that we're doing here is we are providing humanitarian assistance to over 6,000 refugees in 9 different parts of Indonesia. And that's together with authorities. We're working together, but we're providing accommodation, health insurance, social activities, psychosocial assistance. And so all the things people need to live. And at the same time, we're working with the Refugee Task Force, and we participate on the Government Refugee Task Force to identify where there's problems, how we can help, and how we can put it all together. And if we need someone to come in and say, this is a good idea, this is how we can adjust a law, adjust a procedure, we'll share that experience. And then the Refugee Task Force, which is a purely government Indonesian entity, will consider different options and make decisions.
Oh my God, Pak Jeff, there is so many. Wow. IOM have been working so many things. Whoa. And I'm actually interested in did you say about psychoanalysis?
Psychosocial.
Psychosocial?
Yeah, I mean,
what is that?
What psychosocial means is our mental well-being. And some migrants, for any migrant, it's kind of scary. So if you're traveling to a new country and you don't have friends there, you don't have your family, you don't have medical insurance, so it's somewhat scary for a lot of people. And then imagine if it doesn't go perfectly. And so in our psychosocial programming, it's often with victims of trafficking.
Oh no.
So people who've suffered, or it could be with people who have migrated and they've had, not a great experience. They've had to come home. They lost money. They didn't have, that positive money-making experience some people want to have. And in Indonesia, it's also with refugees. So people who left their country because of persecution or war, and they've been traumatized. To leave your country is one of the scariest things anyone can go through. And a lot of our population are children. They're kids who didn't have any choice. They're uprooted and they're here.
Oh no. I feel so bad now. I empathize with that kind of position. I've never been in that position, but just imagining that position is just scary even now. Do you think that collaborations with other parties aside from the government is also crucial to help these people deal with these situations?
It is.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is. And the best case scenario is not that we insert ourselves, but that we build, and I talked about resilience, and resilience means people being able to help each other. And so that's working within the communities where they find themselves. And so we have host communities in Indonesia. We work with them wherever we go. Right now, we're doing a lot of work in Aceh with Rohingya boat arrivals.
Rohingya boat arrivals. Oh.
And they're being welcomed by the local population, but we have to work on that. And we have to build trust and understanding. And they also provide services. And so that's something where we make those linkages on services. And then Indonesia has this amazing tradition of giving. I mean, it's
what
unbelievable.
Does it mean? What kind of giving?
You have charities.
Oh, yeah.
Who, when there's a problem, when there's a call for help, Indonesians give money to them. Yeah. And so the charities they're partners, and they're much bigger than we are. I mean, there's charities which are so huge and influential and have their fingers all around the whole country. So we need to work with them. So that's those are Indonesians. They are funded by you and other people, your listeners. And they're the most important people to help out.
I see. So you need like collective collaboration with different parts, not just with the government.
You want to be integrated. And you, if you were going someplace, you don't just want to work with the government. You want to go and talk to people and communities and learn about cultures. And they're also a helping hand.
Right. I'm actually a little bit more curious about the Rohingya people. Can you share more about their situation now and how we, as young people that's watching this podcast now, can help them other than giving money in charities? How can we provide more sense of servitude for the people who need our help,
First of all, and it has to be said that when Rohingya are going by boat and they're leaving their country or leaving the camps in Cox's Bazar, they're not allowed to land anywhere except Indonesia. So Indonesia has afforded safe disembarkation on humanitarian grounds by the president himself. And so it's a place of refuge. It's a place where when they have nowhere else to go, when they're stuck at sea and they die at sea, it's dangerous, that they can land in Indonesia. There's not huge numbers. There's about 1,000 people that have landed this past year. But it's a place where Indonesians help people. So that's the first thing, is that continue to lend a helping hand and allow people safety when they need it. The biggest thing about migration, the first priority for me is always saving lives. And Indonesia is saving lives. There's no question. There was a boat which sank offshore late last year. Several hundred people died. But there are people allowed to land here. And then once they land, they're put into temporary accommodations. And in those temporary accommodations, we need to make sure that there's psychosocial help, like we talked about before, but food and nutrition, and it's safe and it's clean. And we're doing work with local authorities on that. So that's important. And then we need to look at, for those who stay longer, that there's something which is durable for them, where they have places which they can stay, which are cleaner, that their kids can go to school. That's really important. Okay. They get access to services.
So for the young people that's in the area where the Rohingya resides for now, they must be even more proactive to help them.
Right? We're working with the community again, and in PD. So is where the location of the facility is. It's the local community where we're putting a lot of energy, just like we spoke to you before. I see. That they understand the people who are coming and why they're there. They're also not always the richest people. And so they see that there's a lot of attention on a community which just landed, and they have their own needs. And so we need to understand what those needs are and try to bring it together.
Yeah. Oh, I can't imagine how hard it is to know when the boat sank and people died, and just hearing that makes me want to help them more.
Terrifying.
Yeah, it's terrifying.
Terrifying.
Okay, maybe we can move on to the next topic. I want to dive deeper about new trends in human trafficking cases, TPPO, in Indonesia. When previously we talked more about Rohingya, and then about the case of people from Vietnam. They fled the country. They knowingly, with their own consent, they want to flee their previous place and then come to Indonesia, right? But in human trafficking, that's a whole different story. People, they don't know that sometimes that they're being taken advantage of, and that's why I'm kind of scared too, because we'll never know. What if someday I get kidnapped and then I get into human trafficking? I don't want that to happen too. So that's why I'm a bit more curious here, because me as a woman, I'm also a minority. I'm also very fragile. I could be a target. Yeah. So in summary, what can you say to help young people in Indonesia be more aware about human trafficking, to avoid it? Can you summarize it in simple layman terms so that people younger than me can actually be more aware?
I really will. And I'll start off, Al, by saying that you probably, not knowing so, have been a target already.
I'm so scared.
It's kind of scary because you're on social media.
Yes, I am. So many people follow me and I don't know if I'm the target.
And the targets are advertisements that pop up on your social media and say, are you interested in a job? And you've probably seen them. I think I've seen them. But there's diagnostics, there's artificial intelligence. They're able to see the age group of the people who are they're targeting, and you and your audience here would fit that demographic. That's for sure. Let me take a step back. So trafficking in human beings is when people are deceived, they go over international territory, and then they're exploited. So you need to have those kind of three things. There's deception, transport, and exploitation. Traditionally, there's been a lot of forms of that for Indonesians as well. The Indonesians have worked abroad in the service industry. They work in homes, and there's not always protection. And we talked about government to government agreements, but lots of times people just go by themselves. Most migrants from Indonesia are not going on an official contract. Most are going without any contract at all. And so they don't have protection. And when you're in someone's home and you're doing cleaning services in the Middle East and you're in a bad situation, it's scary. You need help. So that's been one of the longer forms, and it still exists. The fisher industry was pretty heavy here for a while. There's a famous incident, it was a phenomena, I would say, in Benjina. It's a very small island. There's like 17,000 islands in Indonesia. There was one of these islands where they had people who were stuck for 10, 12 years.
What?
Who were in the fisher industry, and they were having problems on the boats. They put them on this island and they were stuck there. And the government addressed it. They found the people, they returned people, they prosecuted. The fisher industry needed regulation, and it's progressed. It's a lot more transparent now than it was before. But online scams is the new phenomena. And this one is kind of scary because it targets people, like I said, like you. People who are on social media, people who are computer savvy, people who are educated and looking to go abroad. And what it does is it looks at people and offers jobs. And it offers jobs which pay a lot more than inside of Indonesia, where there's a lot of youth who are looking for work.
Yeah.
And it sounds exciting. So what happens is people are offered jobs in advertising or in computers or in different sectors which they think would be interesting. Their travel is paid for. Their visa arrangements are facilitated. And they go primarily in this region. It's Cambodia, Vietnam, Myanmar, Laos, and the Philippines. Indonesians are currently, the number of people who have been helped is in the top 5 nationalities. And there are people that go and thinking they're getting work. I met a victim of trafficking. He was a recent college graduate. He was an engineer. So he is super well educated.
Wow.
And it was during COVID times, and he wasn't able to find a job. So he took these opportunities. He went into this facility, and as soon as he got there, they told him, you have to make yourself into a profile. A social media profile.
Okay.
And they gave him a photo of a young, beautiful girl And his job was to go and reach out to people, men, and pretend that he was this young, beautiful girl and try to get money from them to say, okay, I need money for my education. I need money to travel. I want to come visit you. And that's not what he wanted to be doing.
What?
And so he decided, this is not what I want to do. I want to leave. But he was in a building. This is highly financed. It was in a building. It was in a border area of Myanmar, across from Mae Sot, if people know where that is in Thailand. It's a multi-story building. There was 10,000 people in this building. It was a newly constructed building. So what that means is it's $1 billion industry. It's big money.
Oh my God.
And then they try to sell cryptocurrency. They have online gambling. They have this kind of romance scam. And they reach out to people and they have a quota. And they have to get so much money every month to give to the business. He wanted to leave because he didn't want to be deceiving people. And they wouldn't let him. It was armed. There was nowhere for him to go.
Armed? If he left, he would probably be shot?
He'd be physically restrained. He was on the 5th floor. He talked about potentially jumping.
No.
And he said, that's not safe. He's not going to do it. He got away. And he got away by contacting his family. And they had him pay the equivalent of, 45 million rupiah to pay back the expenses to get him there. And then they let him go. And he came and spoke at an event I was at in Bali about a month ago. There are, they estimate there's over 100,000 people in Asia working in these online scams. So it's not little. And again, they're educated people. They're not all victims of trafficking. Some people maybe say, okay, I'm making money. But most people don't want to scam people out of their savings. And certainly they don't know that when they're going into the job.
Yeah. Well, that case, the person you just told me about the case, he's a citizen of Myanmar?
No, he's Indonesian.
He's Indonesian?
He's Indonesian.
But the case happened elsewhere.
The whole scam was to give him employment in Myanmar. And a lot of the locations of these kind of offices are in Myanmar. It's not safe right now. There's fighting. There's instability, and it's on border areas where there's no real central governance. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Bapak Yuda, went to Mae Sot himself. He went to find people to help him to come home, to advocate for systems to free the people in the building. He said he could see the building from a distance. They were looking at cutting off electricity to the building, but the building started building their own generators.
Oh, no.
So it's sophisticated. And it's difficult. They were cutting off internet connections because it's based on the internet. Yeah. And it's a difficult issue. And it's growing, and it's pretty new.
Oh my, these online scams are very scary. And according to the data that our team have provided here, in 2022, the Directorate of Protection of Indonesian Citizens, or PWNI, Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Republic of Indonesia, has repatriated no fewer than 422 Indonesian nationals who were trapped in the online scamming networks in 11 repatriation waves. So he's probably, the person you talk about is probably one of the people in this graph then.
Yeah, he's the lead guy. And he's active, and the team is active, and they go to places where people need help. Yeah. And it's a great example of the government trying to give protection. It's a decree that they're responsible for safeguarding Indonesians abroad, and it's their responsibility, and they're taking it very seriously.
I'm scared, well, because this example is from job opportunity. What if we fell in a human trafficking trap in other forms online? Like maybe we were just playing games, like an app that's about games, but we have to pay something to get more in that game. Or maybe it's like a travel agency, and we thought we trusted that travel agency to take us maybe like a tour in Europe or a tour around Asia, but then we get into human trafficking as well. Like, what other examples other than these job opportunities?
There's a lot of different examples. But I mean, in general, I think travel is safe to a lot of countries. And that's what makes people more vulnerable, because they assume that there are no problems. And so when they get into these situations, it's a great surprise for them. And that makes them an easier target, right? So if you're thinking about it beforehand, then you can take some precautions. You can try to find someone where you're going. You can contact this part of the ministry and ask them information about the location. What we want to get to a stage is where people who are getting employment are able to ask, is this safe? Is this legitimate? Is this something which has been registered?
So don't just blindly go follow the direction that they give, and actually be a little bit more critical and ask if it's actually real.
Yeah.
I see.
And the head of BP2MI, his name is Benny. He is super active also. I've seen the government-to-government agreements. I saw 1,000 people departing to Korea. And they had the employers on both sides who were there, the BP2MI and also the labor ministry from Korea. And they have mechanisms where people have hotlines where they can call. They're able to check on where the individual is. It's there's guidance, there's regulations, there's laws, and so it's a lot safer.
Oh, I see. But you said it yourself that this kind of industry, the online scamming industry itself, is a big money. It's big money, and it's actually still expanding. So it means the cases are still increasing. In your perspective, or maybe in IOM's perspective, what are the factors that contributes to this increase, this expand? What do you think that made them can expand even more and trick more people? Yeah,
I think people are becoming more and more computer dependent. I look at my children. I come home and my 13-year-old boy's got that phone in his hand, and to get him to leave it, I got to say, okay, that's too much. And he says, okay, Dad. And then 2 seconds later, he has it back on. And he's doing social media. People are interconnected, and he's on TikTok, and he's on all these different platforms where people are able to share information, and sometimes that information is not good. So that's why that's expanding, and that's why it's so interesting. How many people are in this one scam? Over 100,000, they estimate. Because it's lucrative. People give money.
People give money. I'm so scared now. I'm a little more scared now. But yeah, it's because of the development of internet, the interconnectedness, and then how we are more online than ever. That is why the case has been increasing. That's the answer.
And what does social media mean to you? And what does that mean to your friends? It's really important. And people invest a lot of time. And at a certain point, I think they trust it.
Okay. Is there anything that is in IOM's plan ahead to further prevent young people getting trapped into online scams?
It's just speaking about it now is a form of prevention.
In the podcast by Tenggara.
It is. It's one of them.
Yeah.
There was just this great conference we had in Bali. And it was bringing together the media. Had one of the biggest, I think it was the biggest studio bosses in Indonesia, and he was there. There were actors, there were directors, and it was talking about how we can engage them on education. IOM has a wonderful, which we have to give to you. We did a wonderful short movie on online scams with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And I've been doing this work forever, like we were talking. It's one of the best I've ever seen. I thought it was really, really excellent because it was realistic, because you could really understand the dynamic and the story. And it's in Bahasa, and we'll share it with you. You can put it on your online platforms. So that's a great way of sharing information, is so people are aware. They need to have helplines. The people need to know where they can go to.
Oh, is there currently no hotlines yet?
There are hotlines in every country, but not everyone knows the hotlines where they are. The online scam center are one of them, because there's many. In one of them in the Philippines, it was an Indonesian who was somehow able to get a phone call out to Indonesian authorities, but in the Philippines, and say that we're stuck and we need help. And then the Indonesian government was able to contact the Philippines, and they helped liberate. It was over 2,500 people at this one time. And so people have to know how to reach out and ask for help. And then there's got to be prosecution. Mm-hmm. Nothing works unless there's prosecution, which is difficult because it's on the internet. It's cross borders. It's a new phenomena. Not every law is up to date.
Yeah.
And so there's got to be analysis of law and how you can best prosecute and how you can shut down these scamming centers. And just shutting them down, because we know where they are now, has been difficult because they're in these areas where no one can reach because of conflict and because of crime and because how strong they became.
You mentioned before about the short movie. I'm actually more interested. Like, can you tell me the title of the short movie? I might want to watch it after this. It's already released?
Oh, it's released. And I don't know the title off the top of my head. I should. And I just thought about it from talking to you, that this is the platform which we want to do and share and get it out. I'll get that to you before we leave.
Okay. I'll make sure I'm going to watch it and share it to people. And it's in Indonesian, right? The short movie.
It is, yeah.
And then other than that, your recommendation is to have stronger prosecution, right? Yeah. Yeah, that's my concern too. Like how can we prosecute the people when they're online and we don't know where they actually work from?
And they're maybe not in Indonesia.
Yeah, they might not be here.
And the work is not in Indonesia. It's outside. And so it means there's got to be international cooperation.
So that means this falls under the jurisdiction of like Interpol?
Interpol would be involved for sure, but if one of the scam centers we just talked about was in the Philippines,
then
and so
it's
the Philippine authorities. But there might be evidence from how you would need from Indonesia. The people who are going are speaking their own language, and so they're not going to the Philippines and speaking Tagalog. They're going and speaking Bahasa, and so they're going and scamming people back here. So what that means is the evidence is also in Indonesia, because the Indonesian student who was given a girl's profile, he went back and was looking at Indonesian men and trying to get money out of them. And so that means you have to get the evidence, you got to gather it, and you have to share it with in this case, the Philippine authorities,
and then translate and then collaborate between countries. It's so complex,
exactly,
and it takes so long then just to finish one case. Then oh my God,
yeah.
I'm very, very scared now.
There's a lot of safe travel, and migration is wonderful for a lot of people. And I talked about Bapak Benny and BP2MI, and he looks at Indonesia. These are Indonesians who are migrating for work. They come back afterwards, and he looks at them as heroes. He says, you're going and you're helping other people. There's a lot of caregivers who are Indonesian abroad. In Japan, there are a lot of people helping the elderly. It's a real aging population. And they're sending money back home, and hopefully that money is contributing to the economy here and helping those families. And so there's a lot of positive things about migration, and people shouldn't be too scared.
Okay.
but they should be aware.
I'm still scared if I'm gonna get scammed still. But yeah, other than having like casual talks like this in the podcast, and then having a short movie, and then other stuff that's already being on progress with the government, is there any specific programs, other initiatives that have been launched to address this and actually help prevent this from happening again?
Trafficking in general.
Yeah.
There's a lot of programs, a lot of regional programs. There's a project called ASEAN Act.
ASEAN Act,
which is a counter-trafficking program. There's the second richest man in all of Australia was with one of the richest men in Indonesia at this conference I was at, talking about how they can strategize with their contacts and their leverage to bring attention just to this type of issue. And again, there's my organization, there's other UN organizations, there's NGOs, local NGOs. There's a lot of people who are working on the issue, coming together, and government.
Yes.
And it's become very popular. And I've been around the world. I've been to Asia before, and I've seen trafficking phenomena. I'm seeing a lot of action right now and a lot of talks.
A lot better, a lot of improvement.
I think people are alarmed, and governments are alarmed, and they're really working to address these issues.
Actually, about the hotline, I haven't been informed about trafficking hotline before. Maybe can you provide me with the
We'll provide you with that
after this,
as well as the link for the
movie. Nobar kita guys, Nobar. I want to teach you Indonesian slang. Nobar.
Nobar.
Nobar. Bar. Roll the R's.
Bar.
Bar. Nobar means nonton bareng.
And what does it mean?
Nonton bareng. Watch together.
Okay.
Yeah. The nonton is watch. Bar
so
is
all your
bareng.
audience, nobar.
Yes, Nobar, the short movie.
There we go.
All right. Now I think I'm going to move on to the topic of refugees and asylum seekers. We've touched the subject a little bit previously before we talk about human trafficking, but I want to ask a little bit more about this now. According to UNHCR, there are approximately 12,000 plus refugees registered with the UNHCR office in here, Indonesia. And among them, 73% are adults, 27% are children, and of the total number of adults, 27% are women, people like me, and 73% are men. And as of the end of November 2022, the majority of refugees in Indonesia originated from Afghanistan, Somalia, and Myanmar. And for those claiming asylum and granted refugee status by UNHCR, IOM Indonesia provides resettlement, like you said before, and then other cooperative agreements with the third countries. The services include case processing, health assessments, like you said before, right? Nah, my question is that, based on the data, Indonesia has not ratified the 1951 Refugee Convention on Refugees. So, is it posing a problem here for our country? Because we're hosting a lot of refugees now, but we haven't ratified. So, with the significant number of refugees here and the absence of our ratification, like what can we provide as legal protection, and what can you give as like advice to ensure the protection for these people that really need it right now? Because this is very concerning for me. I'm a little bit scared.
There's a presidential decree. And so that presidential decree regulates and how refugees are treated in Indonesia. And it's with that presidential decree, I think it's 175 in 2016, that we base our cooperation. And we're able to provide direct assistance. We're able to reach refugees, and we help them with, again, housing, with medical needs, psychosocial, education, all the basic needs. And so in many ways, there are procedures and processes which we can follow. There's a refugee task force.
Refugee task force.
Which is interagency, which looks at the governance and structures and coordination of refugee assistance. But there's also areas where there's scope to improve. There's something called the refugee. Well, there's refugee conventions, and there's the Global Compact on Refugees. And the Global Compact on Refugees is looking at pledges every year.
Pledges.
And part of the what's being discussed for refugee pledges from Indonesia are access to education, or greater access to education in for secondary education and advanced education. Children are allowed to go to school in Indonesia and allowed to go to Indonesian schools. And about 44% of the children who we're helping do. Another percentage are doing classes in the refugee centers. The best practice for child development is to be in a recognized curricula and mainstreamed into local education. So we're trying to work on that better. Again, the barrier is not the Indonesians. Always, they allow primary education access. Sometimes it's the refugees themselves who feel like They want to study English because they want to be resettled to an English-speaking country. And so they provide their own education. But that's not the best way to do it always. It's nice to have extracurricular activities, to learn languages, to have specialization. But having a national curricula and the socialization of being with other children your age is something which is really important. So we need to work on that as an institution, as IOM, and to find out ways that we get more people in primary education. And a part of the refugee pledge is also to looking at secondary education and higher education, because those, it's not very high. And sometimes students are not able to get official results. So they can monitor classes, but they can't get a grade. And so you want that, because the average stay in Indonesia right now is over almost 9 years, which means kids are growing up and they need education and processes. We're also advocating for inclusion into medical schemes. So it used to be that IOM had our own medical facilities where we would bring people, Indonesian facilities associated with us. And then it's been a better practice to give them health insurance, just like you might have. And so they go to Indonesian institutions. We have worked with the banks, and we're able to give people a monthly stipend, which they can get on a bank card, which gives them some more independence about what they're doing and making life choices. And so that's been a really good practice. A lot of the people, they can't get a driver's license.
They can't.
And they want a motorcycle. They want to take their children to school. They want to go shopping. They want to do things. So that's something we need to work on. And there's other areas, but there's a basis. There's this presidential decree, and there's a great level of cooperation. And in many respects, there are good services, but there's always areas for improving.
Yes. Okay, so the summary is that even though Indonesia has not ratified the 1951 Refugee Convention on Refugees, still Indonesia has the presidential decree that can provide the legal protection for all the refugees. And then you've already gave examples of the actual actions that has been done to provide protection and education and then health insurance for all these people that's residing here currently. Yeah. Okay, so that means even though it's not ratified, there's still other things, right, going on. Okay.
There are. I mean, we hope it gets ratified at some point, but there are structures in place and frameworks that provide for assistance to refugees. And again, Indonesia is a place where Rohingya are allowed to come. We talked about that earlier, where other places are not doing safe disembarkation. And the facilities we're working in, I think, are good.
I see. Okay. So you said that you want to further support and enhance other areas, right? Like, for example, like providing the driving license for all these refugees, right? Do you think it's actually possible to do that? I think it's interesting to give like temporary driving license.
I'm learning more about it. I'm still pretty new, but there's laws which govern everywhere in a whole country. And so then these would be exceptions to existing laws, but I think it's possible. And I think if we all come together, and we've discussed it at the Refugee Task Force, it's something which is possible. Another thing is that refugees are not able to work legally.
Yeah.
And so if you're looking at, the average length of stay being 9 years, a best practice would be that you can stay and you can get temporary work permits. And because you want people to be able to sustain their lives.
Yes. Temporary work permits. Yes.
There's not a pathway to citizenship in Indonesia. And so part of the refugee conventions would be that certified refugees, one of the durable solutions would be local integration and citizenship. So that's not currently on the table for refugees in Indonesia. They're refugees, so they're persecuted. They can't go home so easily. And so that's another durable solution. And the third durable solution is resettlement, which you mentioned before. And resettlement is going to a third country. And so that seems to be what many of the refugees here are waiting for. They're waiting for to go to Canada or the US or another country.
But does
be
it actually
resettled.
work like that though? Maybe these refugees, they have like their own dream list, I guess. They wish to be resettled in Canada or the UK, for example. But does it actually work like that? In reality, do they actually get resettled there, or do they actually get resettled on other countries just based on what IOM can make possible at the time? Like how?
IOM is not providing resettlement. I should
sorry.
say that. I should say
Okay.
that because it's sometimes confused, and refugees, that's what they want, and so
Yeah.
they come to us and say, "You need to resettle us."
Mhm.
It's not. We don't even influence where people go or where they're chosen or where they can go. Governments decide on the amount of quotas they have, and they say, "Okay." 100 people will come to our country at this time. And then they are able to look at the people who are given refugee status and allocate slots. What IOM does is the logistics once they're chosen.
Oh, okay.
And so once they're chosen, we're involved with resettlement. We do medical screening and we make sure there's no transferable diseases going to a third country, that people are healthy, and provide transportation. And then we usually hand over or do integration assistance.
I can picture it better now. Thank you. Yeah, so that means that even if they wish they can be resettled in Canada, it might not come to, it might be a different country because it depends on which country let them in.
Yes. Exactly.
All right.
Exactly. You explained that really clearly.
Okay.
Globally, and this is an interesting phenomenon. Resettlement is not the easiest option because there's not so many spots where people are taking refugees globally. The estimation is that 1% of refugees are resettled. So that's 1 in 100. The estimates are that 3% are in the need of resettlement, meaning they cannot return home. They have protection needs where they are now, or there's no durable solutions for local integration. So 3% have the need, 1% are given it, which means the vast majority have to look at other options, which is local integration, or eventually return home. Sometimes countries at war, the war ends, and then they can go home, and that's also one of the solutions.
Do a large portion of the people come home eventually, or do they get localized?
The highest percentage for durable solutions is return home.
Returning home.
And many refugees are in the neighboring countries.
Oh.
Africa has a huge amount of refugees. I was the regional director in East Africa, and it was the host for millions of refugees, usually in the surrounding countries, often in the bordering areas. And eventually many of them went. Some were resettled because they had particular issues, but the majority eventually went home. But some have been waiting for 25 years.
Oh no!
I mean, forever.
Then what happens to those people who have been waiting for decades? Like, how can we ensure that their safety is granted in wherever they're living right now?
Well, the best case scenario, and this is what UNHCR has promoted, and it's part of the Global Compact on Refugees and refugee pledges, is that people are allowed to work and they are allowed to locally integrate. So then they can have kind of normal lives while they're waiting for durable solutions.
I see. This kind of reminds me of like that movie. I think is a movie called The Terminal or something, where this guy was fleeing a country who was at war, and then the country suddenly he can't come back to the country, and then he just lives in the airport.
Yeah.
You know that movie?
Tom Hanks.
Tom Hanks, right?
Yeah, it was Tom Hanks. He lived there forever. It's a true story, actually.
It's a true story, right?
Yeah.
So that guy is considered a refugee then?
If you have a well-founded fear of persecution, so meaning that it's dangerous for you to go home, and then there's procedures everywhere, then they get refugee status. And there are procedures here in Indonesia where people get refugee status. In an airport, I suppose that you have UNHCR who would go and visit the person. There's zones in an airport which are in between.
Yeah.
And so claiming asylum can be somewhat difficult. I think in this particular case, well, I don't know. I mean, I thought that after a long time, he eventually went home.
That's okay. Well, yeah, maybe does the the movie, that Tom Hanks movie, it's based on true story, right?
It was, yeah.
Does it actually happen here in Indonesia? Do people actually stay in the airport? No.
I mean, I'm sure in Indonesia it's happened. I've seen people in airports who are in no man's land, and I've worked in countries where there are people who are at the airports for sustained periods of time. Yeah.
Oh, I see. So that means all of us have still a lot of homework to regulate and then help provide safety for these people then. Yeah. Oh my God. We have a lot of homework. We have a lot of homework. All right, Pak Jeff, thank you so much for your time, for your knowledge, and also for your care that you want to stay here and help prevent young people become victims of human trafficking, and then help young people learn a lot more about these cases that's going on in Indonesia. Thank you so much. And thank you so much as well to IOM Indonesia. Y'all are the best. Yes, thank you so much. And for the viewers, thank you as well for staying until the last minute. I really appreciate it. I hope you guys learned a lot from this episode. And don't forget to please subscribe to this channel, like this video if you enjoyed it, and comment below who do you want to be interviewed next in our other episodes of Tenggara Talk. Maybe you have other ideas. I don't know. Just comment here. Or maybe you can also comment the things that you find interesting in this episode. So just please let us know, and we would love to interact with you guys further. And for the viewers over there, we also want to remind you to watch the movie that IOM made. I don't know, Pak Jeff, let's promo the movie.
Nonton through the screen. Hindari online scams.
Yes, hindari online scam, guys.
I got it.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.